الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. All praise due to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. We send prayers and salutation for the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, his family, household and companions. May Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala be pleased with all of them. Ameen. Inshallah, today we will start Tārīkh al-Sunnah. Tārīkh al-Sunnah. The Risala is one of the Rasail that they've written in relation to the history about the Sunnah. إشراف مركز إحسان لدراسات السنة النبوية. It is not a specific writer or author that wrote this Risala. طيب. May Allah bless the brother Abu Aisha. He requested that maybe we start these lessons as this is the lesson that is the foundation of the science of Hadith. طيب. This is the lesson that is the foundation of the science of Hadith. As we know today, there are a lot of people today that says Sahih Bukhari is a book that is not complete. Is a book that is not authentic. Is a book this and that. Sahih Muslim is a book this and that. Then you have some other people. They say they bring a lot of doubts, al-mustashrikun, that I think the Orientalists, I think that is how they are called, or I don't know their names. These are people that they make tashkik, they bring doubts in relation to the Sunnah, and they say the Sunnah is something that was not gathered and written during the life of the Prophet ﷺ. After 200 to 300 years, then people gathered the Sunnah. So that means the Sunnah is not free from mistakes. So because of that, the Sunnah is something that we should not accept and we should leave it. We should not accept it. We should only focus and accept what comes from the Quran halal, what comes from the Quran halal halal, what comes from the Quran haram haram. That is what we have to stop. No Sunnah, we're not going to accept any Sunnah. So when you listen this kind of statement, if you don't have any clue about this knowledge of Tārīkh al-Sunnah, the history of the Sunnah, maybe you subscribe to that which they are calling to. May Allah save us from that. Now, so for anyone who is trying to study Hadith, for example, this is one of the subject that is upon him to pay attention to understand, so that he is able to understand the reality of the Sunnah as how it started, yani how it was preserved till this time which we are living presently. Now, as we know, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala is the one that have sent the Quran, and is the one that sent the Sunnah. As the scholars mentioned that the Quran is a revelation, the same as the Sunnah is a revelation. وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. So this tells us that the Sunnah again is a revelation. Is a revelation from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Ala inni utitu al-Qur'ana wa mithlahu ma'a." So these affirms that the Sunnah again is a revelation from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, as how the Quran is a revelation. Having doubt about the Sunnah is like having doubts about the Quran. We have the Quranist and the Quraniyun. Even though this name which they call themselves is not correct, because in the Quran you get a lot of evidences in the Quran that order us and tells us to follow that which is in the Sunnah. A lot of evidences. مَن يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ أَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. So most of these ayat, they tells us to follow and take from the Sunnah and accept the Sunnah. So but the mustashrikun and the others like them, there are people who bring doubts about the Sunnah. They bring doubts about the Sunnah. This is Bukhari. Bukhari gathered statements and gathered it together and put it in a book and said, these are the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. Then they said, the hadith, that is the ahad that are in Bukhari are up 7,000 hadith. How is it possible for the Prophet ﷺ to speak 7,000 statements? Past how they said per statement, per time, or each time, or seconds, or minutes, an hour, or day, there are certain words which a person will be able to say. So if the Prophet ﷺ can, how the Prophet ﷺ can say 7,000 words within a very short period of time, around 23 years. So they bring doubts about this. They said Bukhari mentioned a lot of ahadith, and these ahadith are not authentic. So how can you, as a Muslim, a Salafi particularly, can be able to understand this reality about the Sunnah, and for you not to have doubts about the Sunnah, and to refute these claims that those people make in relation to the Sunnah, is when you study this hadith. This Tārīkh Sunnah. Even some people who have just studied Sharia, for example, they are not able to refute this kind of, some of them, not all of them, some of them are not able to refute those people that bring this type of shubha. Like, for example, Dr. Muhammad, one of the students of Shaykh Abdul Muhsin al-Abbad, he said he has had a person who is a doctor in Sharia. Some mustashrikun, those people that bring doubts about the Sunnah, they've brought the same doubts about the Sunnah. And this doctor was asked about it to refute this. The Shaykh, he said, this doctor that has a degree in PhD in Sharia, the faculty of Sharia, he is not able to refute anything. He spent an hour, the Shaykh, he said, Dr. Muhammad said, he spent an hour, he was not able to refute anything. Why? Because there is a naqs in this subject, Tārīkh Sunnah. So inshallah ta'ala, as we'll be trying to study the science of hadith, I ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala to grant us tawfiq in that. Ameen. Bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we will see how best we are going to study this risala. Then from there, we're going to take other subjects that are related to the knowledge of the Sunnah, inshallah ta'ala, so that we have some knowledge about it. Barakallahu feekum. Now, when we say Tārīkh as-Sunnah, what do we mean? The word Tārīkh, linguistically, the word Tārīkh means what? It is at-Tārīkh with Hamza. At-Tārīkh. بفتح الحمزة. At-Tārīkh. That is the asal of the word. At-Tārīkh. But وقد تخفف الحمزة. But they've made the Hamza light. They removed the Hamza by saying At-Tārīkh. With the mad At-Tārīkh instead of At-Tārīkh. Barakallahu fikum. So what is At-Tārīkh linguistically? When we say At-Tārīkh linguistically, it means al-ikhbaru wal-i'lamu bil-waqt. Al-ikhbaru wal-i'lamu bil-waqt. Al-ikhbar is to give information. Wal-i'lam bil-waqt, and to inform about something, about time. To inform about something or time. طيب, al-ikhbaru wal-i'lamu bil-waqt. Then ثم شاء في اصطلاح إطلاق التاريخ على تسجيل الأحداث وتدوينها. Linguistically, when they say this is a history, it have spread among the people to refer to as Tārīkh as writing of things that have passed in the past, things that happened in the past, writing it together and putting it in a book, for example. Then they refer to it as what? As Tārīkh, or history. Let's say, for example, what happened from the time of Prophet Ibrahim to the time of the next prophet. All that which happened together, they gathered it and put it together. Linguistically, they call it as Tārīkh. Or for example, let's say what happened from 1900 to 1999. All of the things that happened in the dunya, put it together and write it together. The history, what happened, the sickness, these are the goodness, all of the evil that happened and the good things that happened during those century, putting them together. Linguistically, they refer to that as what? As Tārīkh. والتاريخ في اصطلاح, when they speak about تاريخ اصطلاحا, اصطلاح محدثين, الإخبار عن حوادث الزمن الماضي. informing about the past things, the things that have happened in the past, informing about things which has happened in the past. Tārīkh linguistically means, sorry, in the Sharia means, istilahan means to inform about things which have already passed. وَإِلْمُ التَّارِيخ, the knowledge of Tārīkh, فَنٌ is a science. يبحث فيه عن وقائع الزمان. It is a knowledge that we search through it, the things which have happened in the past, من حيث التعيين, the specific things which have happened, والتوقيت, and the time they happened. It is a subject that teaches you about the things which have happened in the past, the things itself that happened, and and when it happened. This is in ilmu at-Tārīkh, the knowledge of Tārīkh, history. وَالسُّنَّةُ فِي اللُّغَةِ, وَالسُّنَّةُ فِي اللُّغَةِ, the sunnah linguistically means السيرة والطريقة, a path or a way. حسنة كانت أو قبيحة, either it is a good one or an evil one, as long as it is something which have done, which have happened or passed. Except as long as it is a path or a way. As long as it is a path or a way, either it is good or not good, it is referred to as sunnah linguistically. وَالسُّنَّةُ فِي اصطلاح المحدثين, the scholars of hadith, when they say sunnah, they say it means أقوال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the statements of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, وأفعاله, his actions, وتقريراته, his things that he affirmed. For example, there are some things the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم himself did not do it, but it happened to one of the Sahaba or one of the Sahabi. Then the Sahabi came to the Prophet ﷺ and informed him that Prophet ﷺ, this is what and what happened. Then the Prophet ﷺ will affirm and accept it, or he will not say anything to condemn it. These are the things that are referred to as sunnatu at-taqririyya or sunnanu at-taqririyya. Then the sunnah again means wasifatuhu al-khilqiyya wal-khuluqiyya, and his descriptions, his attributes, the way how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him, and his manners. And his manners. This is what the sunnah means in the istilah of the muhaddithun. When the muhaddithun, they define sunnah, these are the things that they refer to it as sunnah. So now we've defined at-Tārīkh, we've defined sunnah, because anytime we have words which are joined together, for example, usul al-fiqh, usul al-fiqh, qawaid al-fiqhiyya, we need to define the words, each one by itself. Then from there we put them together and define them. For example, here we define Tārīkh first, linguistically and in the Sharia. Then we define sunnah linguistically and in the Sharia. Now we're going to put Tārīkh and the sunnah together, then we define them. They say, ilmu Tārīkh ilmun يبحث في مراحل تدوين سنة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. This is a knowledge that teaches a person the stages which the sunnah, putting the sunnah together of the Prophet ﷺ have passed. This is a knowledge where you're going to learn the stages which the sunnah have been gathered, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ have been gathered. وَإِنَايَةُ الْعُلَمَاءِ بِهَا, and you're going to learn in this subject the attention and the efforts the ulama they've given and paying attention to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ bin zamani Nabi ﷺ, since the days of the Prophet ﷺ ila waqtin al-hadir, to our own time. Wa anwa'il musannafati fi marahil tadwin sunnati wa inayat al-ulama'i biha min zaman Nabi ﷺ ila waqtin al-hadir wa anwa'il musannafati fi dhalik. Wa anwa'il musannafati fi dhalik, the different types of books which have been written in relation to Tārīkh as-Sunnah, the history of the Sunnah. That means the Sunnah, Tārīkh as-Sunnah, is a subject that you will learn the stages that have passed through the Sunnah, gathering the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, putting it together, and the efforts and the attention which the scholars, the past, they have been given to this specific Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ from the days of the Prophet ﷺ till this time which we are presently living. then the different type of books that have been written in the relation to this subject. الموضوعات التي يتناولها علم التاريخ السنة, the topics which this subject, the history of the Sunnah, it deals with. There are 7 subjects that we're going to mention here, which this knowledge of Tārīkh Sunnah or this subject deals with. The first one is Makanatu Sunnati an-Nabawiyyati. It tells us the status of the Sunnah, wa manzilatuha fi tashri', and the rank, the status of the Sunnah in the Sharia. That is, this subject is a subject that will tell you that the Sunnah is one of the ways, the things that we use to give a ruling or to give a law in Islam. Makana wa manzilatuha fi tashri'. That if, for example, we have a mas'ala, an issue, we don't have evidence in the Quran to say it is haram or is halal. What we do, we go to the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam will tell us that this thing is halal or haram. Sunnah. The Sunnah is something that we use as an evidence, yani to affirm things in Islam or to accept things in Islam or not to accept things in Islam. The Sunnah is an evidence to accept things in Islam or not to accept things in Islam. That is, if there is no evidence in the Quran, we can quote a hadith which is authentic to affirm the evidence, the lawful of that this thing is lawful or it is not lawful. There are many examples which we can make in relation to that. There are things in the Quran which the Quran have, there are things which the Quran have not mentioned that they are halal or haram. But in the Sunnah, there are things, the Prophet ﷺ, he made them clear that they are haram. For example, Prophet ﷺ said, Kullu muskirin haram. That's everything that makes someone feel drunk. That thing is haram. This is a thing that Allah, the Prophet ﷺ said. So you can make qiyas, analogy, and bring anything that is a reason for someone to be drunk, then that thing is haram. So you see, so if there is no evidence, for example, in the Quran, then you bring the Sunnah to affirm that. Even though there is everywhere Allah says, Ya alladhina amanu innamal khamru wal maisir wal ansab wal azlam rijsun min amali shaytan. طيب. This evidence is general, that wine is completely haram. Wine is completely haram. طيب. Now, then another topic which this subject deals with is kitabatu sunnati fi zamani nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam wa ma ba'dahu. It tells us that the writing of the Sunnah, writing the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, or putting it together in the lives of during the life of the Prophet ﷺ and after the Prophet ﷺ have passed away. Another topic, naqlu sunnati wa riwayatuha wa hifduha. Transmitting the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and mention riwayah, that is like, for example, you want to say something, then you quote as an evidence to affirm that which you want to quote. For example, I say shirk is haram. What is the evidence? Then I bring evidence. For example, I say this is haram. What is the evidence? I bring the Sunnah. And to memorize it, and memorizing the Sunnah of Rasulullah. And the manifestation of the methodology that manifests the path of the Salaf, the people of Hadith, in relation to this subject. Another topic that this subject deals with is marahilu tadwini sunnati abra al-usur. It teaches us the levels, the stages which the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ have passed through, tadwin, to gather it together and make it into different books, different writings. طيب. Marahil tadwin sunnati abra al-usur. All of the stages, the first generation, the first century, the second century, the third century, the fourth century, the levels which the stages which the Sunnah have passed, whilst they have been gathered the Sunnah together. Another topic which this subject deals with is Anwa'u tasnifi fi ulumi Sunnah. It tells us the different books which have been written in the relation to the subject, the science of the Sunnah. Number 7, ad-difa'u anis Sunnah, defending the Sunnah against those who bring doubt about it. Now, the ulamas, they've written a lot of books. In each one of this topic, you can get a specific book which the ulama have written to support, to explain it in details. For example, Makanatu Sunnah, for example, Hujjiyyatu Sunnah. You can yani Difa and a Sunnah. You can get a lot of books which have been written in each one of these topics. So we have 7 topics here. Number one, مكانة السنة النبوية ومنزلتها في التشريع. حجية السنة، كتابة السنة في زمن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وما بعده، نقل السنة ورواياتها وحفظها، ومعالم منهج أهل الحديث في ذلك، مراحل تدوين سنة النبي صلى عبر الأصول، أنواع التصنيف في علوم السنة، الدفاع عن السنة. These are the main topics which the subject Tārīkh As-Sunnah it deals with. Now, what is the importance? أهمية علم تاريخ السنة. What is the importance and the benefit of studying this subject تاريخ السنة? Number one, من فوائد من فوائد دراسة تاريخ السنة. From the benefits in studying this subject is number one, ترسيخ مكانة السنة في نفس الدارس. It's يعني make the person who studies this subject to teach him the rank and the status of the Sunnah in the person who studies the subject. Because when you study the subject, you're going to know that the Sunnah is indeed one of the greatest, the greatest things, masdar, reference of Islam. That is the Quran and the Sunnah, for example. وَأَنَّهَا وَحْيٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. Then you come to know that the Sunnah is a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَنَّهَا مَحْفُوظَةٌ بِحِفْظِ اللَّهِ. Then the Sunnah, the person who studies the Sunnah will know that the Sunnah is a revelation from Allah and it has been preserved by Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. That is why Al-Imam Al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, he said, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala have promised to preserve, to protect the Quran from any things that will change it. Same as the Sunnah. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala have done the same to the Sunnah, because Allah said, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra wa inna lahu lahafidun. Verily we've sent a revelation, the dhikr, the reminder, then we're going to protect it. And there is an ayah in the Quran where Allah called the Sunnah as a dhikr. So Al-Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah said, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala preserves the Sunnah as how He preserves the Quran. Allahu Akbar. Another benefit and importance of studying the Tārīkh As-Sunnah, the history of the Sunnah, is معرفة ما تميزت به هذه الأمة عن معرفة ما تميزت به هذه الأمة عن سائر الأمم. This subject teaches us to know that which this ummah is different, distinguished from the other the other generations. هذه الأمة عن سائر الأمم, from the other generations. من الاعتناء بسنة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, because of them paying attention to preserve and protect the sunnah of their prophets. ونقلها بالإسناد, and من الاعتناء بها ونقلها بالإسناد, and transmitting the sunnah to the people with each chain of narration. No ummah from the neither the Yahud or the Nasara, the Christians or the Jew, have a chain of narration of their religion to their prophets except this ummah. All of the generation which have been sent, only this ummah is the ummah which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has protected from any form of changes. That is why you can get everything with chain of narration. That is what Abdullah ibn Mubarak said, Al-Isnadu min ad-din. Chain of narration is part of the deen. Lawla al-isnadu laqala man sha'a ma sha'a. If it was not because of the chain of narration, everybody will say what he wants to say. This will say this, that will say that. Everyone will say what he wants to say. But because of chain of narration, when you say this, you'll be asking about the chain of narration. Where did he get this from? That is why the people do not say just anything that they feel like saying. Another benefit and importance of studying the subject Tārīkh As-Sunnah is al-ittilā'u ala juhud as-sahabati wat-tabi'in faman ba'dahum min ulama'i al-hadith fi hifdh sunnati an-nabawiyyati wa tadwīniha wa dhabbi anha. This subject tells us, it makes us see the reality, the effort of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ and the Tabi'in and those that came after them and the scholars of Hadith in preserving the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and putting it together and defending it against anything that is not part of it. It tells us the importance, the effort that the companions of the Prophet ﷺ and those that came after them and those that came after them and the scholars of Hadith, they've given to this subject so that they are able, they protect it from all that which is not part of it. Another importance and benefit of studying this subject الاطلاع على طرق التصنيف في السنة النبوية وتطورها عبر الأصول. It tells yani we come to learn again yani from the benefit and importance is the different methods and ways that the scholars they've written books yani about the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and how it has a tatawur. I don't know how that is called in English. Let's say something yani upgrading, how it has been upgrading from time to time, from the first generation, the second generation, the third generation, yani the other generation, how the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ have been upgrading. Now, another importance or benefit of the sunnah is dahdu shubhati ta'inina fi sunnah, refuting the misconceptions, the doubts, the shubuhat of the people who make mockery and bring doubts about the sunnah. When you study this subject, you will be able, inshallah, to defend the sunnah and to refute all claims that the people of falsehood they make against the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. طيب. There are different books, there are different methods that the scholars have written in relation to Tārīkh al-Sunnah, this subject. التعليف في تاريخ السنة. التعليف في تاريخ السنة. The books that have been written in relation to this subject. There are three ways which the scholars have written in relation to this subject. Number one, المؤلفات التي جمعت بين تاريخ السنة وغيره من العلوم. There are certain books which have been written. These books, they are be written specifically, they are be written about something about the sunnah. The history of the sunnah have been mentioned in them, and other things have been mentioned in these books. There are certain books which have been written. These books, something about the history of the sunnah have been mentioned in them, and another subject or things have been mentioned in this book. That means it is not being written specifically about the sunnah, the history of the sunnah only. Then the second type of books which have been authored about this book is المؤلفات المفردة في مباحث مخصوصة من تاريخ السنة. Specific books which have been written about researches about the history of the sunnah. There are specific books which have been written only about this subject. There are specific books which have been written only about this subject. Then the third type of books which have been written, al-mu'allafat al-jami'a fi Tārīkh al-Sunnah. Then there are another books which are comprehension. They are books which are summarized of everything in relation to the books of to the subject of this subject which is called as a Tārīkh al-Sunnah. So we got three different methods which the scholars have written about Tārīkh al-Sunnah. Inshallah, let's read some books in each level, each method of writing. The first method which the scholars have written their books in relation to Tārīkh al-Sunnah is they wrote a specific book, but this book they mention something about the history of the Sunnah, and they mention other things. That is, it is not written specifically about this subject. For example, number one of these books is al-Risala. The Risala by Imam al-Shafi'i, Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i. Then Jima'u al-In. This again is written by Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah. Then المحدث والواعي لأبي محمد الحسن ابن عبد الرحمن ابن خلاد الرمهرمزي رحمه الله تعالى. الرسالة وجماع العلم. These two books are written by Imam Shafi'i. They are not specifically written about the history of the Sunnah, but you can find things about the history of the Sunnah in these two books. In these two books, they say here, حيث ضمن هذين الكتابين مباحث متعلقة بتاريخ السنة. It's comprised of researches, topics that are connected to the history of the Sunnah. كالاحتجاج بالسنة, that the Sunnah they can use it to seek evidence that this thing is halal or haram. ومكانتها, or telling us the rank of the Sunnah. وعلاقتها بالقرآن. Then ومكانتها وعلاقتها بالقرآن. Then it tells us, for example, in these two books we mentioned the connection the Quran and the Sunnah has. وقبول خبر الآحاد. And it tells us that in these two books that we accept خبر الآحاد. خبر الآحاد, when they say خبر الآحاد, it is there are narrations which the people which have narrated these narrations are not more than their numbers is not more than 10. They are like 3, 2, 5, 6. These are ahad that are referred to as khabaru ahad. It has different type. We have aziz, we have gharib. These, inshallah, we're going to take a subject like المدخل إلى علم مصطلح الحديث. إن شاء الله that is where we're going to learn المتواتر وخبر الآحاد. This word متواتر خبر آحاد, the first generation, there was nothing like this. They don't know about these things. Al-Khabar, this hadith is mutawatir, or this hadith is Khabar Ahad. There was nothing known about the this and the first generation and the second generation. But the people of Bid'ah, they want to reject specifically the names and the attributes of Allah. And some of the ahadith that came about the names and attributes of Allah, these are ahadith that are narrated by 2 or 3 groups of Sahaba or 4 groups of Sahaba. It is not narrated by, let's say, 15, 20, 30 Sahaba. Now, so because of that, they want to reject it. So that is why they brought this thing as Khabaru Ahad or Mutawatir. But Alhamdulillah, the ulamas, they've written a lot of books to explain this thing. Inshallah, as time goes on, we're going to learn that. Inshallah. Okay, so Jima'u al-Risala wa Jima'u al-Ilm, these 2 books are written by Imam Shafi, and these are some of the things that they comprise of. Then the other book which is written in relation to the books that are written, which are not specifically written about this subject, Tārīkh al-Sunnah, al-Muhaddith al-Fasil bayna al-Rawi wal-Wa'i. This is written by Abu Muhammad al-Hasan ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Khalad al-Ramahurmuzi. In this book, ذكر فيه رحلة أصحاب الحديث. He mentioned the efforts that the scholars of hadith they put into traveling to seek knowledge, وكتابة الحديث, and writing the hadith, وتثبت في تحمل الحديث, and to be certain before accepting any hadith or transmitting any hadith. Another book which was written in the relation to this first sect of writing books about Tārīkh al-Sunnah is Al-Jami'u li Akhlaq al-Rawi wa Adabu al-Sami لأبي بكر أحمد ibn Ali ibn Thabit al-Khatib al-Baghdadi. In this book, Al-Imam al-Khatib al-Baghdadi ذكر فيه الرحلة في طلب العلم والتصنيف في الحديث. He mentioned traveling to seek knowledge and the different writings in the subject of hadith. Another book which is written, but is not specifically written about the history of the Sunnah, is Jami'u Bayan al-Ilmi wa Fadlihi. Bayan al-Ilmi wa Fadlihi, by Abu Umar Yusuf ibn Abdullah ibn Abdul Barr. In this book, Al-Imam ibn Abdul Barr, he mentioned تكلم فيه عن كتابة العلم. He mentioned about writing knowledge, والرحلة في طلبه, and to seek knowledge and traveling to seek knowledge, ومكانة السنة, and the ranks of the status of the Sunnah, ومنزلتها من القرآن, and its ranks to the Quran, its status to the Quran. وكثر الكلام في هذا العلم. There have been a lot of words, statements about this knowledge, about this specific knowledge. So these first books that we mentioned, for example, we mentioned Al-Risala, Jima'u al-Ilm by Al-Imam Shafi'i, Al-Muhaddith al-Fasil bayna al-Rawi wal-Wa'i by Al-Imam Abdul Rahman al-Hasan ibn Abdul Rahman ibn Khalad al-Ramahurmuzi. Then Al-Jami'u li Akhlaq al-Rawi wa Adab al-Sami by Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi, Jami'u Bayan al-Ilm wa Fadlihi by Ibn Abdul Barr. These books, these are some of the books. There are many others, but for now, these are some of the things. These books, they are not written specifically about the knowledge of hadith, the history of hadith, but they are written. There are some topics of these subjects which are mentioned in those books. Then the second set of books which have been written, which are books that have been specifically written about this subject. Number 1, تقييد العلم. تقييد العلم by Abu Bakr Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Thabit al-Khatib al-Baghdadi. أفرده في الكلام على مسألة كتابة الحديث. This book, he made this book specifically about writing the hadith. Then another book again, الرحلة في طلب الحديث. This again is another book by Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi. This he mentioned here, traveling to seek knowledge. Another book, الروض الباسم في ذب عن سنة أبي القاسم لأبي عبد الله محمد بن إبراهيم علي الوزير. Then another book which is specifically written about this subject, مفتاح الجنة في الاحتجاج بالسنة لجلال الدين عبد الرحمن ابن أبي بكر السيوطي. Another book, الرسالة المستطرفة لبيان مشهور كتب السنة المشرفة لأبي عبد الله محمد بن جعفر بن إدريس الكتاني وهو في ذكر المصنفات في سنة النبوية وعلومها. This book is mentioned, يعني it mentions some of the books which have been written about these subjects. Another book again, معرفة النسخ والصحف الحديثية by Dr. Bakr ibn Abdullah Abu Zaid. And then there are dissertations which have been written in this present time. For example, Hujjiyat Sunnah by Abdul Ghani Abdul Khalik. Another book is Akhbar al-Ahad fil Ahadith an-Nabawi by Dr. Abdullah ibn Abdurrahman ibn Abdurrahman al-Jibreen rahimahullah. Makanat al-Sunnati an-Nabawiyya by Dr. Umar ibn Musli al-Husayni. Then Al-Muhaddithun was-Siyasa, Dr. Ibrahim ibn Salih Ibn Abdul Aziz Al-Ajlan. These books that we mentioned, these are books that are specifically written about this subject, which is called as the history of the Sunnah, Tārīkh As-Sunnah. Then we have another books which are written generally. It speaks about from the days of the Prophet ﷺ till this our time, about the Sunnah, how it have upgraded and developed time, centuries after century, century after century. These are the other books. These are the other type of writings. One of the books that have been written in relation to that is Miftah Sunnati, or sometimes they call it as Tārīkh Funūn al-Hadith لمحمد عبد العزيز الخولي وهو أول كتاب في الباب. This is one of the first book that have been written in relation to this topic. Yani, that is general, that gathers all the things which have happened, past and present, yani comprehensive. Comprehensive. Another book is السير الخفيف في تاريخ تدوين الحديث لمحمد زبير الصديقي. Another book is الحديث والمحدثون, or sometimes they call it as عناية الأمة الإسلامية بالسنة النبوية للدكتور محمد أبو زهور. Another book is دلائل التوثيق المبكر للسنة والحديث للدكتور امتياز أحمد. Another book is بحوث في تاريخ السنة المشرفة لدكتور أكرم ضياء الأمري. Another book is دراسات في الحديث النبوي وتاريخ تدوينه لدكتور محمد مصطفى الأعظمي. Another book is تدوين السنة النبوية نشأته وتطوره من القرن الأول إلى نهاية القرن التاسع الهجري للدكتور محمد مطر الزهراني. So these books that we just mentioned, these are books that are comprehensive books which have been written about this subject. So we have three categories. The first category is books which have been written but not specifically written about this subject, but there are some of these subjects are mentioned there. Then another books which have been written specifically about this subject. Then another books which are comprehensive about this subject. These are the three type of books which have been written in relation to this subject, which is called as Tārīkh As-Sunnah. Tārīkh As-Sunnah. So inshallah, this is the first lesson bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. We will stop the lesson here so that it is not too much, inshallah ta'ala. I have tried to get the PDF of this particular book which I'm using, but I have not get it. There are, I think, is ordered only in Saudi Arabia. Is for sale only in Saudi Arabia. I saw the page, the official page of the Markaz Ihsan لدراسات السنة. Now, maybe inshallah we can go and we can refer back to it. Inshallah, I'll take a photo of it so that you see it. Inshallah, maybe you can search for that and you can try to get it. Inshallah ta'ala. Let me take a photo of it. Inshallah ta'ala, and I'll send it in the chat here. Naam, barakallahu fikum. Now, give me seconds, please. I'm trying to take the photo. I don't know how can I take photos here. I'm not seeing any option of taking the photo. Samir, I'm not seeing any option. I don't know, so that I can send the photo here. The photo of this risala. Or maybe I will take a photo of it and send it for the brothers so that they can share it in the Discord so that brothers can order it, inshallah. Now, because I've tried to get the PDF, but I've not seen anything like that. Mm, I'm not seeing any option to take a photo. Inshallah, I will do that bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Just after here, bi'idhnillah, I will send that to the brothers so that they can share it. Inshallah, barakallahu fikum, jazakumullah khairan. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.